Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Culture Project series Call to Love, Call to Hope, streaming on Facebook Live Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Emily, and I'm a first-year missionary with the Culture Project serving Team Cleveland. And today we have an awesome panel of female missionaries here to talk to us, so I'd love for everybody to go ahead and introduce themselves and share a little bit, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be talking about. So if I could start with Kiki, start us off.
Absolutely. I'm Kiki, and I'm from Team LA, serving the Archdiocese of LA, and I'm so happy to be with you guys today.
And we'll keep it right there in California and go to Johnny.
Thanks, Emily. So yes, my name is Johnny. I'm a third-year missionary, and I'm serving with Kiki on Team LA this year.
Awesome. Thank you. And of course, last but not least, my teammate, Lara.
Hi, everyone. As Emily said, my name is Lara, and Emily and I are kicking it, serving the Diocese of Cleveland.
Love it. Love it. Thank you guys so much for being here. And yeah, we're so excited to talk today about female friendships. So I don't know if you've seen the title, it's called Holy Women Make Holy Women. And today we're just going to kind of dive into our own experiences of female friendships in our lives, kind of the ups and downs, and how we can grow in holiness and in virtue in regards to in our female friendships. So yeah, we're just going to kind of start off by everybody sharing a little bit of their own experience of female friendships in their lives. When we were preparing for this, we kind of noticed that the four of us all are all across the spectrum when it comes to our experiences of female friendships in our lives. So we kind of want to lay that out for each one of you. You know, maybe you're watching this and maybe you'll relate to one of us, or maybe you'll fall somewhere in the middle of two of us or something like that. But we kind of have a lot of different experiences. So just to start us off, I would love for Lara to start us off and talk about your experiences of female friendships in your life.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So as Emily said, we were kind of talking about how when we begin the conversation about ourselves and our female friendships, and I recognize that I fell on one particular end of the spectrum, and I am pretty fiercely independent, and this is definitely like part of my personality. Like I'm definitely more introverted, so I like need more alone time to process and rejuvenate. And I'm also a pretty big like planner and organizer, so I just find it easier a lot of times to just do things on my own rather than including other people in it. And another facet is like this Miss Independent mentality. I don't know if anyone else out there is like that, but like this whole thing of like, I could just do it by myself. Like I'm good. But I was just doing some reflecting and like thinking about how that being my personality and having that mentality really did impact my female friendships throughout just the years so far. And so I recognize something about myself is that like I just kept a lot of my friendships on more of like this surface level because, you know, it's just like I am independent, I'm busy, I have things to do, goals to accomplish. And so sometimes I viewed those female friendships as something that was like more burdensome rather than something that was going to help me like grow and thrive. But homegirl real quick found out that that was false. So after striving on my own for a while, like it gets pretty lonely. I'm going to be super honest about that. Because yes, I had my academics, I had my work and all these other aspects of my life in check, but I could definitely see that something was missing. So it wasn't until particularly like there's this one individual, I'm gonna call her out, she's watching here tonight, Maddie, yes, you, like she challenged me, like she pursued me and invited me to do things even though I said no a lot. Like I said no a lot in the beginning. So it was just through her consistent invitation that I began to see like, one, I was worth pursuing. And two, like I need these good female friendships in my life. And not just one individual, like I need multiple females. So she got me involved particularly in the faith when it comes to the women's group we had at our Newman Center. She had me like up running the social chair, you know, an introvert running the social chair. Like that's a really pretty funny joke, but I loved it. And it was like through that experience that I recognized that like, yeah, I don't need to do this by myself. In fact, like it's going to be harder and I'm not going to grow into the woman that I'm supposed to be if I don't enter into this community. So that's just a little bit about my journey through it, going from Miss Independent to recognizing like, no, you can't do this by yourself. So if you can relate, ladies, that's me.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Lara. We love seeing that Miss Independent, it's a good thing, but we do need friendships. We do need people in our lives. Next, I'd love for Johnny to share your experience of female friendships.
Yeah, so I think in order to share my experience, I need to start with a story. So when I was younger, one of my aunts, shout out to Aunt Terry, she shared some advice with me that was actually really beautiful. She told me to surround myself with good guys and have really strong male friendships because my brothers in Christ were going to be really important in my life. And I, of course, took it to a bit of an extreme. Reflecting on my life, I am more of a tomboy. I like fast cars. I like engineering. I like the color black a lot. I don't know if that's male stereotypical, but anyways, I also like sports as well. So I was like, wow, I really relate to dudes. And so when I got into my middle school and high school years, I had so many guy friends. And whenever I joined the Culture Project, one of the women in the Culture Project sat all us women down and she said, it's really important that you go to your female friends first with parts of your heart, with vulnerable things, before you share it with the men in your life. And I was like, that's stupid. Why am I going to do that? I was like, I love the guys in my life. I'm going to tell them about my heart. And I continued to have those horrible boundaries. Like I would share parts of my heart and vulnerable things with the guys in my life before I would share them with my friends that were women. And so I kind of learned the hard way during my first year of mission that I need to set up boundaries. And female friendships are actually really beautiful and really important. And I've had so many life-giving and inspiring and good, healthy, safe conversations and relationships with women in my life. So if you're extreme like me, watch yourself.
Thank you so much for that, Johnny. Yeah, I love that. I mean, we need male friendships in our lives and all these things, but there's something so different about two women being in friendship together, and it's so important to have that. I guess I'll share now because I found myself falling a little bit in the middle, where I've been hurt by women in the past or by friendships in the past, and would find myself, find it easier to be friends with guys and have a lot of great friendships with men in my life. But something that I've noticed in my closest friendships is just this beautiful consistency and stability, that I have this kind of core group of girls that I always know I can turn to and that have been there for a really long time. And that really started when I was in 6th grade. I met my best friend Haley in 6th grade, and we are still best friends to this day. And truly, when I think about my friends in grade school and my friends in high school, something that I noticed is that Haley and I are really the only ones, or she's the only one that I really reach out to or feel reached out to by. We kind of have kept that closer relationship, and I truly believe it's because the foundation of our friendship was our faith and was sharing that and was pushing each other towards greater holiness. And that's why it's lasted these years, So like I said, we started in 6th grade, and now in October, I'm going to be a bridesmaid in her wedding. And it's just so beautiful to see that friendship, that consistent core friendship there. And then when I went to college, I was so grateful, and I am so grateful to meet an incredible group of women. And really, there's 4 in particular that I was very close with. We all met the first week of freshman year, like the first day of freshman year, and lived together all through college, all lived together senior year, and still, FaceTime, like we FaceTimed 2 nights ago and all those different things. But those relationships were so beautiful, and I think we recognized that we needed those relationships because there was a presentation our first week of freshman year where they talked about the importance of female friendships, and it just set us all on fire to really enter into that relationship and enter into that group. And it wasn't perfect. There were fights here and there and whatnot, but I do believe that it was, again, that core just striving for holiness and pushing each other to live out lives of virtue that we've seen in those friendships. And that's why they've lasted so long. And I'm so very thankful for all of those friends. So that's kind of me in the middle a little bit there. Now I would love for Kiki to share her experiences of these things.
Yeah, so I found myself on the other side of the spectrum, very extreme side of the spectrum, where I felt there was an influx of women coming into my life. And I loved it. But as a little girl, as a little girl, I found myself in that position. And then I found myself in that position in college when I joined an all-female sorority. And then I went to Maggie's Place post-college, which is a hospitality home for homeless pregnant women, which I thought it was like 12 pregnant women, at once. and then me, and then like the missionaries, all women. Wow. So I've always been pretty bold with going up to people and asking them, hey, you want to be my friend? Or hey girl, can I get your number? Because I love making friends and I just love people. But I was always giving of myself, always pursuing people, and I didn't really know how to receive. And maybe that resonates with you. Because I found myself kind of comparing my feminine genius to someone else's, right? And a feminine genius is basically your ability, like women's unique ability to be able to like nurture and give life, protect, serve. And so I found myself comparing myself a lot to other women that were in my circle and not knowing how to navigate those waters and who to invest in. So yeah, that was me.
I love that. So as you can see, we are just all across the spectrum when it comes to female friendships, but something that we all can agree on is that they are so important. But we keep talking about this, like female friendships, feminine genius, all these things. What is that? What does it mean to be living in female friendships? Kiki, could you expand a little bit more on that of what is it to be in a female friendship?
Absolutely. So a relationship, I would say a friendship, a female friendship is a relationship that really edifies you toward heaven, right? It makes you look up, and it helps you champion your feminine genius, which I said is, you know, women's unique ability to give life and to nurture and to protect. And I have to share a story. Is that all right with you guys? Yeah, let's do it because we love stories. So a few years ago, I found myself on Catholic Match alongside a really good friend of mine. And in person, I met this really handsome man who she met on Catholic Match. So I found him physically, she found him virtually. And so it felt like we were both kind of in a boxing ring, and we're like, okay, are we gonna box this out to see who wins the man or what? But no, she really showed me and she taught me a lesson. I actually realized that in this female friendship, I was lacking trust in God's plan for my life because I was grasping, right? And I was really basing my worth on whether or not I got the man, which is so greedy. Because I felt so threatened by her feminine genius, by her beauty, by her womanhood, and because I didn't know how to receive that. And I was constantly comparing myself. And I also realized that I wasn't being who I was being called to be by God, because I was showing irreverence to my friend's relationship with me. And so I learned because of that friend that holiness means to strive for virtue, right? That virtue frees you, that it points you to truth. And holy women will always point you to God's truth about yourself, about your life. And no woman can really be great on her own.
Thank you so much, Kiki. I love just that these true friendships are those that edify us towards heaven, that push us towards heaven. And that's what we're talking about, right? These holy women make holy women. We want to be those holy women, and we want those holy women, and we need those holy women in our lives. So this is all great, and you know, that might sound nice and all these things, but the truth is that there's a lot of problems that might come up in our friendships, different ways where we might rub each other the wrong way. And I was hoping Johnny could expand a little bit more on that, some thoughts that you have in the ways that we might have problems coming up in our female friendships.
Yeah, so like Emily said, sometimes problems arise in friendships. And I want us to all really reflect and think about how usually those problems are self-inflicted. Some of the main problems are the boxes that we put ourselves in and the boxes that we put our friends in. Some of the titles that we can give ourselves is, I'm the funny one, or I'm the planner. I'm the one that, like, if nobody else plans for us to get together, we're not going to get together. We're not going to hang out. Or maybe you're the serious one, or you're the empathetic one, or you're the smart one, or the pretty one, or the not so pretty one, or the one who's never been in a relationship, all these different things. And if any of you are putting yourself in those boxes, because I know a lot of us have, I know I have, I really urge you to talk to your friends about that. Let's say that you think that you're the planner, right? Your friends won't really hang out unless you plan something. I want you to bring that to the light. Talk to your friends about it. Tell them, you know, I love planning things for us. I love hanging out with you. However, I would love for you to plan something for us to do as well. Maybe you feel like you can't plan anything because I plan all the time, or maybe you think that your plan wouldn't be good enough for me, but I want you to know that I love you so much and I want to spend time with you. And I don't want to label myself as this. So really just be honest with your friends. But also those gifts that you have, your humor, your beauty, your ability to plan things, your ability to be serious and empathetic, like all of that is good. Like we tell the kids in the classroom, like the people that are in your life are there for a reason, to be encountered by you. God hand chose every person in your life to encounter you because of the gifts and the talents that you have, and also the gifts and talents that they have as well. So don't feel like you have to box yourself in or hide some of your light from somebody. All of the things that make you who you are beautiful, and they're a gift that's meant to be shared in your friendships. And if you're feeling like hurt by it, or you're starting to resent your friends or think all these things in your head, seriously, if your friend is a true friend, they will listen to you, they will hear you out, and they will walk with you through that journey. So please don't be afraid to have those important conversations. I know it's hard, but I promise you that it's worth it.
Thank you. That was beautiful, Johnny. Yeah, we need to be able to be in these friendships, like really true friendships that are rooted in holiness are those in which we feel comfortable sharing our hearts, right? And that we feel like we can speak our needs, or we can speak when we're struggling with different things, and that those people will still love us, right? That is this true holy friendship that we are all deserving of and that we're looking for. But maybe you're asking the question, like, how do I even do that, right? How do I even friendship? What does that even look like? We all were kind of talking about different experiences. We love sharing our experiences on these things because, as you can see, we all have a lot going on, and everybody out there has a lot going on in regards to this topic. And so we kind of would love to share some of our experiences, especially in regards to looking at them on a practical light of what are some practical things that each one of us have seen in our female friendships, and how can we encourage all of you to live these things out. And really what I want you to notice is that everything that we're talking about is truly just living a life of virtue. And that life of virtue is what will lead us to this greater holiness that will call other people to greater holiness. So we just kind of want to share some practicals, because I think it's easy to get into friendships and have people rub you the wrong way and not feel like you can talk about it, but a true friend will allow you to talk about these things. And so to get us started kind of on those, I would love for Kiki to share maybe some practicals or some story that you have in regards to a friendship that really impacted you.
Yeah, so this actually reminds me of a time where a friend challenged me, but also sat with me in pain. And so it takes me back to about maybe 2 years ago, where she and I made a trip to a city nearby that was within the vicinity of someone who I used to date, and I ended up, encountering him in the trip. And I realized that at the end of the trip, I was really sitting with all these emotions that were stirring up in my heart of just like past memories and all that. And my heart was aching. And for so long, I had told this friend, I am over him, and she believed me. But obviously, the way that I was acting, my facial expressions, my body language was saying the complete opposite. And she could see through that. She saw through that veil. I think it was her feminine intuition and that empathy of hers really saw through me. And I started crying when I told her, I'm actually not over him. And she did something so motherly. And I know it might sound weird to a lot of you guys, but she actually sat with me while I cried and she massaged me to sleep. It sounds so crazy, but it was one of the most memorable moments for me, just like that female tenderness and how a friend can really challenge you and call you on, yet sit with you in the pain and dance with you in your joy and make space for you to be like authentically yourself without shame. So that was a true lesson for me that I am forever treasuring.
Beautiful. And I love that you said that empathy and just that being able to like she received you in that. And that's just such a beautiful quality that we have as women that we have to offer other women in our lives. Thank you so much for sharing that. Next, Lara, would you like to share a story about a female friendship?
Oh girl, I would love to. So when kind of bouncing off of Kiki, just like in her own story, she was talking about like this element of vulnerability. And I think that that's like a really key piece when it comes to these friendships that we're talking about. And I know in my own life, like holding people accountable and being able to be honest is something that is so important in a virtuous female friendship. Because if we're striving together, like we have to be clear on how we can be better together. And I think something we might do, we try to dance around an issue or like try to make things flowery, because sometimes we might like want to avoid conflict or just keep it, at bay. But I think we need to be real and we need to be raw if we want to grow individually and in friendship with this other person. So to kind of give you an example from my own life, going back to my friend Maddie here, one thing that we worked on with each other was the reality when it comes to like gossip and complaining and negativity. So I think we would just come back to our apartment at the end of the night and we would just kind of vent about our day. You know, good to get it out there, good to like kind of hear how we're going with the things that we're going through. But we just recognized that the train of our conversation or the way that we were sharing things with each other was not necessarily uplifting. And so what we began to do was we had a very honest conversation about how it was impacting us in our friendship. And we decided to call each other out on it. And in the beginning, it was like very vocal. Like we'd be like, hey, I don't think this is the best way to take this conversation or anything along those lines, just being very like pointed about it. But like it got to a point where we pretty much just would like look each other like that. And like we would know that we should either redirect the conversation or find a way to bring the positive out of it, just like something, because that gossip and that negativity really can have an impact. Like if that's what we're bonding over and dominates the conversation day in and day out, like that's not true in all authentic friendship. Like that's not going to help you grow. So something that I found within my own life was just a person who was willing to call me out, to be very honest with me, so that way I can personally be better and also help her do the same. So I think that was just something that was really profound in my own life.
Yeah, so important. I think especially as women, sometimes we can fall into that gossip a lot or different things. And I know my friend Haley, she was really good at always redirecting the conversation or calling us out. And that's so important. I love that you said we don't want to bond over negativity, right? We want to have these, especially in holy friendships, we want to have positive conversations with each other. In my own life, something that actually just recently happened in my friendships that I saw that I just thought was super, super powerful. When I was talking about my college friends, the 4 girls that I was really close with in college, you know, there was one that we were very similar and we would sometimes butt heads, or we not really even butt heads, but you could just tell that there was almost like an air of competition between the two of us. There were different ways that we hurt each other in college, and a lot of those things really only came to light in my heart this past year while I was away from her when I was as I was a missionary. And recently she and I actually were together. We were together with the whole group and we had some one-on-one time. And I remember these things were just weighing on my heart, and I felt like I needed to ask for her forgiveness and to say I'm sorry for some of the ways that I hurt her in college. And it turned into this really beautiful conversation of opening up about those things, of talking about how we are kind of competitive because we're so similar and all these things. And we shared the ways that we had hurt each other or been hurt by each other. And it really just boosted our friendship and really strengthened it. And something that she said towards the end of the conversation was, you know, like, we fought for each other, right? We fought for our friendship. We still, even though we were having these struggles and different things, we still chose to love each other. And that really struck me because a lot of times when you hear, oh, to love is to choose the other person, especially through their weaknesses and whatnot, sometimes my mind goes to romantic relationships only. And when I think about those things, but it's the truth in female friendships as well. In any relationship is we have to choose each other because nobody's perfect and we will be hurt by each other. And now the truth is like, if things get really toxic and whatnot, you might have to look at that relationship a little more and discern that a little further. But our friendship was rooted in some goodness and in holiness, and I knew I still needed to fight for her, even though we might have struggled or had competition and whatnot. But yeah, so for me, that beauty of forgiveness and asking for forgiveness, saying I'm sorry, and really just fighting for each other was a big part of our friendship. Now, of course, we'd love to go to Johnny, see if there's any stories that you would like to share.
Yeah, so I would love to share the story of my friend Sheldon, who's she's such a beautiful woman. Love her so much. And our friendship actually began in preschool. We were both 3 years old, and I was a bully when I was in preschool. I made fun of Sheldon for liking the color purple, and I told her that it was stupid to like that color, and she cried. And then my mom came to pick me up, and she found out what happened, and my mom said, you better go apologize. And I was so nervous because I was like, how is Sheldon ever going to forgive me? I was so mean. Like, I don't even know if I deserve to be forgiven. And so I walked up to Sheldon and I told her that I was sorry. And Sheldon, through her tears, she said, it's okay. I forgive you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like a little 3-year-old Sheldon forgave me. And that was the beginning of such a beautiful bond. We became best friends. We tell each other, I love you like a sister, because we do love each other like sisters. While we like grew apart a little bit just because of like, I was in science classes and I was a swimmer and she was a cheerleader. And so our paths didn't cross as much, but we knew that at the drop of a hat, if one of us needed each other, we would be there and we would take care of each other. And we still are close and love each other so much. But as I was growing up in 4th grade, my parents separated. And little 4th grader Johnny was afraid to tell anybody about it. I didn't want to be vulnerable. I didn't want to open up. And I'm an introvert, so and I'm also an internal processor. So I needed that time to just like think about it and process that my parents were separating. And Sheldon knew that. So Sheldon gave me the time that I needed to process, but she was always there if I needed her. And then eventually I opened up to her, and I was nervous because I didn't know if she was gonna like tell me how I should feel, because I'm just, in movies, people do that. And of course, when I opened up and I told Sheldon how I was feeling, she received me so beautifully. She sat there with me in my suffering and just listened. And Sheldon is such a genuine person. She doesn't judge anybody for how they're feeling or what they look like. And she was able to empathize with me and just sit with me in my pain. And she also is able to rejoice with me. So some of the beautiful qualities that Sheldon has taught me about friendship is forgiveness and listening, being there for the person, really seeing who the person is and attending to their needs. Like, and how she waited for me to open up to her because she knew that was what I needed in that moment. And so, yeah, just wanted to share that about such a beautiful soul, Sheldon.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for that. Yeah, wow. What incredible experiences of just wonderful women in our lives. Very thankful for all of us to have had these experiences. And, I was kind of taking notes of what everybody was saying in these aspects, these practicals or whatnot, or these aspects of our relationships that were so important. That vulnerability, the empathy, holding each other accountable for things like gossip, asking for forgiveness, fighting for each other, listening to each other, right? These are all aspects of virtue, right? This is living a life of virtue. And that's what we talk about when we talk about holiness, is in our friendships, if we really enter into these things, and the list can go on and on of ways that we can be virtuous in our relationships, right? That's only going to lead to greater and greater holiness in our friendships. And everything we talked about, anybody can really live these out. But like we said, women live it out in a special way. And we have a special thing to offer to other women in regards to these friendships. So maybe you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, this sounds great. I want this. But you have no idea where to go, where to find these things. Well, we've put together some resources or some different ways. I'd love for Lara to share a little bit about that. But really want to encourage you to take these to heart and to seek out those friendships, because we all are deserving of them and we all truly desire them in our hearts.
Yeah, awesome. I'm all about getting practical with it, because I would hate for anyone to leave this session thinking like, gosh, that sounds great in an ideal, and they have great stories and examples, but like, what can you personally do if you are someone sitting in a boat who's like, okay, I maybe have 1 or 2 good friends, or like maybe you move somewhere new, or you just are trying to seek out these virtuous relationships. Like maybe you're sitting there realizing like, hey, I actually don't have those in my life. Like, what can I do? So I kind of thought through like some different scenarios that you might find yourself in, places to seek people out, things to do during this time during quarantine. So I'm just going to walk through a few of them with you. And I think it really all begins with you starting by taking a look at the people around you and just like asking yourself, like, one, is there a woman or 2 in my life that like I admire, or that I'm just interested in getting to know better? And if that's the case, like, I ask you to be bold, ask them to hang out, to get to know them better. And I think, kind of as Emily was saying previously, like, we talk about being bold and intentional when it comes to dating relationships, but I'm going to say the same goes for friendship. Like, we're never going to make friends and grow deeper in them if we're not making the first move. So like, shoot your shot, but this time with friends. So that's fun. Maybe you can't think of any really inspirational woman currently surrounding in your life, but maybe you have like an area of interest that you're active in. Like maybe you're in a group or you're taking a class. So like right there, is a natural way to connect with somebody, okay? So if you're on a regular basis of meeting with them and you already have this common topic, like, oh, what a great place to start. I mean, just don't be afraid to go up to someone and like start that conversation and extend an invitation beyond those times that you're already meeting together. And that's where you can really take those relationships and like have them go deeper. And then maybe if you are, you know, you have a career, a job, and you're working, and you kind of take a look around the office. Maybe right now is not the office at your Zoom calls, and you might honestly be surprised by like who you're working side by side with. Like even the simple invitation, like when we actually get back into the workplace to like have lunch together and like actually see how that goes. Because then you can extend that relationship beyond that work environment. So that's another place that we can look for these friendships of people with qualities that we admire as we get to go deeper. Also thinking about your routine, okay? Like, is there a spot that you regularly frequent? Maybe you're always like at a local coffee shop and you see the same person sitting in this one spot every time you go in. Or maybe you attend daily mass and there's like always this one young adult woman that's like sitting a few pews over. You've been curious about them, but like you've never approached them. Like, this is the time, once again, going back to this theme of like not being afraid to start a conversation, to approach them. It's like when we're willing to break ourselves like out of this little bubble that we sometimes put ourselves in, that like we can actually find these virtuous friendships with people that are like right there in front of us. So those are just some things to get you thinking about like in your life currently. But maybe you're sitting there thinking, you're like, Lara, I've thought about all those things. I've like looked in every nook and cranny, thought about every like contact in my phone, no go. So I'm like, all right, these next following tips are for you. So maybe you are like from a smaller community, small town, or just like I said before, not really finding anyone. Thanks be God for the internet and social media. And that's currently a lot of our realities right now. But because of that, we can actually go beyond those local surroundings and connect with people beyond that, like in the country, the world. And this is perfect for the coronavirus right now. So great like places to seek out and find women who you know, you can connect with and start to build these virtuous relationships with. I'm just going to plug a few. Blessed is She often has Facebook pages for your local area, bigger cities. So you can seek these out and like have a faith-based community right there and a network to help build up these relationships. There's a lot of apps out there right now. I know like we tend to think of like apps for like dating, but guess what? Y'all can find friends now through an app. So I did my research. I did not come unprepared. If you are looking to connect through a few different ways, there's some fun options out there. There's one called Meetup, which matches you based on your shared interest. There's one called Next Door, so you can like make friends in your neighborhood if you're just like, I don't want to go too far. If you're a mom, like shout out, because there's moms out there who need some good lady friends. Like mamas can't do it alone. So there's one called Peanut. It sounds so cute, y'all. Like literally this app will connect you with other mamas in the area, like with similar age children. So you can just meet up and have like women who get it, who are going through that stage in life. But also super fun one that I found out about today is Lux U. It's by Leah Darrow. So it helps you connect with other Catholic women for prayer formation online and in person. So I know I just dropped a lot on there, but like hopefully those are just some tangible ways to think about your own life and like ways you can navigate online to really find these connections and virtuous female friendships that we're looking for.
Gotta love it. Gotta love a good Lara practical section. You know, thank you so much for doing all that research for us and for sharing that information. Kind of while you were talking, I was just thinking about, you know, it's up to us if we really want this community, if we really want friendships and these things, maybe you're on a college campus or something like that. Like Lara said, do something about it, right? Like shoot your shot, make a group, invite people over, have these things going. We need to get these things going. There's lots of different resources out there, like book studies, Bible studies, whatnot. And really just want to encourage you to do that. And so before we get to the questions that are coming into Facebook, there are so many incredible questions coming in. I would love for Johnny to wrap us up by talking a little bit about mercy and healing in regards to female friendships. Because the truth is, you know, women can hurt women a lot, and a lot of us have been hurt by women in different things. So it's important for us to be able to kind of work through those things and to heal those things so that we can really enter into these relationships that we so need in our lives. So Johnny, if you could share a little bit about healing from those things, maybe with your own experience, but just kind of healing from that in your own life.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be a culture project talk without talking about mercy, healing, and forgiveness. And so I want us to all reflect on the reality that us women, none of us are perfect like Jesus Christ, and none of us are Mary, Mother of God, which means we're going to betray each other and we're going to get hurt by each other. And I'm not saying that pain isn't real, because it is. Like, speaking from personal experience, I've felt it. And if you're anything like me, after getting hurt by another female, you've probably thought to yourself, I'm going to cut myself off from her. I'm going to close my heart to her. And I'm going to close my heart to everybody who tries to, get in. And if any of you have struggled with that, I want you to ask yourself, how much do I trust the Lord? Because if that pain causes you to want to close off your heart or become cold, then you probably don't trust the Lord that much. And I say that because I know that pain is real. And when a person hurts us, when a female friend hurts us, whenever it feels like we can't trust them or they walk out of our lives, that's terrible and that hurts. But think about how that suffering can call you closer to the sacred heart of Jesus Christ. And also think about how Mary's heart was pierced with swords. So become more like Mary. And whenever these things happen in our lives, we must trust that all things are working for our good. Whenever somebody hurts us or walks out of our life, it's part of God's will. He's allowing that to happen to help teach us something, to help teach us how to be a better friend, how to forgive somebody, how to move on, how to let go. There are so many beautiful opportunities through the friendships that we have and the hurts that we have. And also, if any of you, especially during this time of quarantine, if any of you are thinking I don't have a lot of friends, or I've hurt a lot of people, so why would anyone want to be my friend? Or so many people have hurt me, why should I even try to be friends, especially now when I can't even see anybody? I want you to trust in the Lord's plan, because his timing is perfect. And there are people out there that deeply care about you, and people that you will encounter in your life that will love you authentically. And it's important to remember again that none of us are perfect and we're going to hurt each other. But it's an opportunity to grow into a better human being, a better friend, and to grow closer to Jesus Christ.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Johnny, for that. Yes, we can always grow. We can always heal from these things. And it's so important to open ourselves up to that, because we really do need these relationships in our lives. And even though we've been hurt, that doesn't mean each woman in our life is going to hurt us in the same way. So thank you so much for sharing that. So now it's time to get into some of the question and answer that has been coming in from Facebook. Like I said, there are some awesome questions. Thank you guys so much for submitting them. The first question we want to tackle is, how do you deal with a toxic friendship? And I know Kiki mentioned she said she wants to do this. How do you deal with a toxic friendship?
Yeah, this question just strikes a chord with me because in my life, I know I've had my share of toxic relationships, and I've had to learn, the tough way, the easy way, how to nip it in the butt. But I think an important question to ask yourself first is, because mercy is always so important, right? Ask yourself, is the relationship, does it have a space to heal? Is it redeemable? Because if it is, then I would encourage you to have a conversation with whomever you feel is toxic in your life and see if it's redeemable. But if it's not, then ask yourself, if it's not growing, girl, I live by this, or men, whoever's watching, if it's not growing, then it's got to go. If there is no growth, it's got to go. Because if it's impeding your holiness, then it's not worth it. Is it acting like a wall, or is it acting like a springboard? Relationships are so important, you guys. And if they're toxic in our lives, they're going to just be sucking the life out of us. And like Johnny said, we have to trust that God is removing that friendship in our lives and is showing us signs that maybe that friendship was seasonal, you know? And I know I have a hard time letting go of people, because I love people and I just want to keep them in a jar and like walk with them wherever I go. But sometimes they're seasonal, and you have to let go and let God.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Yeah, this next question kind of might be related to that a little bit, of like really navigating, dealing that. So the next question is, how do you deal with a friend breakup? How do you deal with a friend breakup? Does anybody have any thoughts on that, kind of related to the toxic friendship?
I can just say a few words on this. A lot of it can be similar to what Kiki was sharing about, like sometimes some relationships are meant to be seasonal, and we kind of just have to accept them as they come and go. But like when it comes to a point where it like might have been like an end of relationship, that's like, I want to acknowledge that that's painful, because a lot of times in these relationships and friendships, we're giving ourselves a lot of our experience and like sharing a lot of the depths of our hearts with them. And that's such a beautiful thing, to be vulnerable. But when sometimes those relationships either aren't healthy, or just sometimes you go your separate ways, or just naturally over time, there's space that goes in between, like learning how to cope and deal with that can be a struggle. So I just like want to acknowledge that, like, if you're experiencing those feelings, that is okay. I think reflecting on those friendships that have broken up, not grasping at them, because a lot of times we can get in our heads and think about all the good times and want to go back to them and grasp at them. So that's just like one thing that I've personally experienced, is like, sometimes our things are meant to stay in the past. I don't know if anyone else has anything else they want to add to that.
I know I recently actually went through a friendship breakup, and it was incredibly painful. Felt very similar to like breaking up with a man. So I encourage you to like do things that might seem silly, but like they're really healing you guys. I wrote a letter to this friend who, there's no way that I can give this letter to this friend, but even just for yourself to be able to like process everything that went on and be able to just give everything to God, and just tangibly like put it on paper. It just does wonders. So that's just a tip that I thought I'd share.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think what's so funny is, a lot of the things we've been talking about today, I keep laughing because it's like a lot of these things I think about only in regards to romantic relationships, but the same thing can be true of our just, platonic female relationships, or their friendships and things. So thank you for that. Did anybody else have anything to add on that, or no? Awesome. The next question, how to build a virtuous friendship in an environment where virtue is nowhere to be found. That's a good one. Anybody have anything on that? All right, Johnny, yeah.
So I think first I want to acknowledge how hard that would be. I haven't really felt that since like high school, especially now that I'm in the culture project. There's so much virtue. But anyways, I think that to whoever is going through something like this, to acknowledge that you have virtue in yourself, and that your virtue can call others on to greater virtue. And like, I'm not saying that you have to be Jesus and you have to save everybody around you. But through your example and the way that you live your life, you can call people on to greater virtue. But also don't just assume that there's no virtue anywhere. People are trying, even if it's not in a way that you might be trying. And so it's important to like have those conversations with people around you. And then also, you don't have to just have friends that are in your general vicinity. Like, you can reach out to friends that are farther away that have that virtue that can help lift you up, especially if you're going through a struggling time with people that you can't really connect with, or that don't have the same values as you that are surrounding you.
I can also speak to that just a little bit, because the question was also related to like when you're in an environment where it can't be found. And sometimes, like Johnny was saying, like you can bring yourself, you can be vulnerable, you can seek out people and never make that assumption that no one is striving. But in certain circumstances, I think we can realize that we're placing ourselves in environments that are not going to be fruitful for us to even really begin to navigate them, and that are going to be best for ourselves to help grow and thrive. So I think it takes a lot of self-assessment of like, gosh, like what places am I putting myself on a daily basis? How am I spending my weekends? Am I surrounding myself with people that like I know are going to be good for me? Or maybe the opposite, maybe they're not. I know that was a really big realization that I had for myself, especially in college. There were just times where I was hanging out with people and I was like, I know I'm not growing from this. And so sometimes like even changing up that environment can be really key. So I think that self-reflection piece is big as well.
Mm. Yeah, I like that because I think, a lot of times maybe if we are striving for virtue, that'll naturally attract more virtuous people to us and all these things. We can kind of look at those environments and change things up. Maybe it has to be something different in our own lives as well. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Next, do we have any tips for being vulnerable in friendships? Tips for being vulnerable in friendships. Johnny, did you want to listen?
Yeah, sure. So this speaks to me on a deep level, especially because I would run really fast from vulnerability like my whole life, basically. And I still struggle with it now. But I think the first tip is taking whatever you're going through or whatever is hurting you to prayer first. Bringing that to the foot of the cross and asking Jesus to help you carry that. And to also be with you whenever you're sharing that with somebody else in your life. And I think it's important to recognize that like in your vulnerability and your pain, whatever it is you're going through, like you're not a burden. That doesn't make you like some heavy load that somebody else has to carry. It's somebody else is going to help you carry that load so that it's not as heavy on you. That's what true and authentic friendship is. And so, yeah, take that to prayer and then also reach out to your friends and talk to them. Something that I do, I recognize that like whenever I'm going through something, I cannot go it alone, especially because of just the way that my brain like spirals out of control. I always reach out to a friend. I don't reach out to like a bunch of people with the same thing, but maybe like 3, 2, 4, whatever, specific friends, so I can get different insights. And really just saying like, this is how I'm feeling, and can you help me process this? And yeah, I'm gonna stop talking because I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Johnny. You said something that I think is really important that I want to note, because this is something that I have, something that's been a big learning curve for me is only going to certain, like a smaller group of people, especially with those big vulnerabilities or big life decisions or things that you're really struggling with. It's really important to go to just that core group, not rather than just like telling everybody or anything like that, because then we can have that better, more authentic vulnerability, right? Like, and be able to trust in what they have to say and different things. Awesome. Are we all right if we move on to the next question? Awesome. What do you do if you feel like your friendship has changed? And I know I saw another question kind of similar to this, is like maybe if you're in a very different stage of life, maybe like if your friends have been getting married, and you're still single, all these different things. What do we do if our friendships have changed? And that also can just be like in college, your friendships changing from here and there. Does anybody have anything on that?
I think just one thing I wanna comment on when it comes to particularly like that change in relationship, like let's say someone enters into engagement or married life, and you're still single or things like that. I think something for women that's really big is that we often fail to celebrate those moments with the other person, and we can often just look at our own lives and see where we're lacking or how we want to move forward, and not really enter into that, because those are just beautiful moments to walk alongside those women that have been placed in our past. So I think that's something really big, is to celebrate them. So that's like just one point that I like really want to make. Kiki, I don't know if you had something else that you wanted to touch on as well.
This question excites me because I was talking to a friend last week about this exactly. And I think that we are meant to celebrate and like build that culture of celebration, of course. But also on the other hand, I feel like we would really be crazy if we didn't grieve like the loss. Like I'm thinking of like the friends that I know have married, right? Or like have engaged. And I love them so much, but I know and I have to acknowledge that they've entered into like another state of life. And we have to be able to grieve that loss in order to like move forward and be able to give of ourselves in that new state of life. So I think, yes, celebration for sure, but also I think just adding like the grief is normal.
Mm. I love both of those, right? It's a lot of understanding. It's understanding of the other person and hoping that they understand you as well and they're there for you. You know, I even think about that with my best friend Haley, going from being together for so long and then going to college, you know, miles away from each other. Our friendship had to change and you have to adapt, and if you're true friends, you're open to that adapting. So, yeah, I love that. Thank you guys so much. We have an awesome question from Catherine. Catherine, thank you so much for your question. She is saying, how do we fight comparison with other amazing Catholic women? What can you do? What can you do to not feel badly about yourself? So, Kiki, did you want to answer this one?
Yeah, so if it's my Catherine girl, I love you. Um, so I put a lot of thought into this because if you're anything like me, I struggle with comparison, but it's more internal, right? So if it's internal for you as well, I would say even the Lord says this somewhere in Scripture because I know I read it. Bless your sister, like bless your sister, whether it's out loud or internally, but like affirm her, right? Because I think that combats like the comparison and like the internal fight that's going on in your spirit. And if it's something that's going on externally, whether it's with another person or with a group of people, a group of girlfriends toward this other female, then I'd say have a conversation about what should be done, right? Like in this case, like nobody is or everybody is worthy of a good name. And so I give you those two tips for that. And then when it comes to like not feeling badly about yourself, I love affirmations. I literally look at myself in the mirror and like bless myself and like affirm myself in the way that God has made me. Because guess what? Nobody is like you. Nobody else will be born to be exactly like you. And that is something to celebrate. And that's something to just like scream about.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Kiki, honestly, you inspired me to do that as well. In the encounters I've had with you, I've always been like, yeah, you know, all these things. So thank you for that witness. Our next question, how can we encourage our sisters to strive in virtue? Laura? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think one of the first things that we can do, like as we're trying to like grow this sisterhood and you know, walk alongside them and encourage our sisters to grow in virtue, I think one of the most important things we can do is start off by recognizing where they're at and receiving them. Because I think a lot of times if we're at a certain aspect in our faith journey or where we're at in life, like we want to just like drag people along with us. A lot of times we're like, oh wait, hold up. We gotta take a few steps back here. And like we gotta meet them where they're at. Because that's like what friendship's all about, you know, like you're just receiving the other. But just some like practical ways if you are really trying to think about, okay, like how can I be an example? How can I help others strive? Which is a beautiful desire. I think the first thing you can do is like be a witness in the way that you live your life. I think just like being faithful to the commitments that you have set for yourself can spark this curiosity that invites others into it. And that kind of leads into the next thing is also the power of an invitation. We might work under the assumption it's like, oh no, like I don't really think they would want to do that, or like I'd be afraid how they might respond. But like you literally don't know unless you ask. And so I think whether it's inviting someone to come with mass with you, or if you create a routine with them, if you want it to be something that's like you know, more regular, like whether it's like praying a rosary together once a week, doing a Bible study together, setting a time once a month where you go to confession, you hold each other to that. I think there's a lot of ways that we can help one another and our sisters strive in virtue. So yeah, those are just a few practicals that I can think of.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Laura. Laura with the practicals again. We love it. I think we only have time for one more question, and there's an awesome question that I think is really great to bring the men into this conversation. And so there's a question saying, how can men support the healthy female friendships of their significant others, or maybe even just in regards to like any female friendships? How can men help us in this? Anybody got anything? All right, Kiki.
This question is gold. So when it comes to the feminine genius, I find that like emotions have a lot to do with it, right? Because the Lord has created us with a lot of emotions, and it's a beautiful thing. But also, men, we need you because God has given you just a rational brain, a practical brain, right? The waffle brain. And so you are the vessel in which our emotions can be channeled through. And it just helps like stabilize us so much. So when a girl comes up to you and tells you about maybe just a conflict that she's had with a girlfriend or what have you, something similar to that, then you can help her in like channeling her emotions and channeling those desires through your rationale and your authentic masculinity. So great question. I love it.
This question kind of reminds me of my first year on mission and how the brotherhood with all the men on all the different teams, like it was so beautiful and so strong. And I wanted so deeply to like enter into that with them because like it was so cool. But I was like, I'm not a man. And so I had to take a step back and like remove myself from, maybe they were like playing basketball all together, like all as men. And I would step back and like give them that time. And also I noticed like with my own brother, whenever he would be hanging out with like his guy friends, I would just remove myself for a little while so he could just like bond with them. But then also talk to him about it as well. Like ask him about different things, like what is your friend like? What do you love about them? Like all these different things. And so I think when entering into a relationship with somebody else, really like not inspiring, really allowing them to be friends with the people that they're friends with, giving them that space to enter in with their friend, but then also entering into it as well, like with them and with that friend, or maybe becoming friends with that friend on your own. Hopefully that made sense. I said a lot of, anyways, yeah, thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Johnny. Men, we need you to help us in this as well and to encourage us to enter into these female relationships. And so very thankful for that. I just want to note that while we're continuing to work on these lives, we are considering doing a male version of this conversation. And so stay tuned for that. It'll be great to kind of see how this all goes into the men's lives as well. But yeah, I think that's about all we have time for. I just want to thank everybody on our panel for your incredible answers, for sharing your hearts and your stories, and really just shout out to all of our awesome female friends out there who might be watching this. Maybe it's now or later. I know all of us are kind of like, oh, these are our friends, but not all these things are on here. So thank you guys so much for your role in our lives and for leading us to be holier women, and we hope that we can be the same for you as well. So thank you all so much for tuning in tonight, and thank you for your questions. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please make sure to join us tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for our book study. During this time, as you can see, the mission of the Culture Project continues. And so if you want this to continue, if you want us to continue doing these things, please consider making a donation today at thecultureproject.org/donate. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.